By watching this video, you are going to know more about catamarans than 99.9% of the world's population. Let's have a look. Hello, yes, that's right, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV. Today, what we're looking at is the parts of the boat and what are they for. And we're looking at the basic catamaran. Right, so we're going to steam straight in and we're going to look at the biggest parts first. So the most prominent part of the boat is this part. We've got two of these on a catamaran. This is called the hull. The hull is what makes the boat float. The more air that we have in the boat, which means the bigger the hulls are, that is what we call volume. And the more volume we have, the higher the boat will float on the water and the more people you can get on the boat. So parts of the hull, the front of the hull is called the bow. The back of the boat is called the stern. And then the other key parts that we have here is on these types of boat, this part of the hull which sits under the water, this is what we call the skeg. The skeg is what allows the boat to turn and it helps the boat to sail into the wind. And then the final part of the hull is just this lip where the deck meets the side of the boat, and that is called the gunwale. Yes, it is. Okay, so the next most prominent part of the boat that we can see is the mast. I'd like to think that the purpose of the mast is quite obvious. The mast is what holds the sails up. Now, what holds the mast up is what we call standing rigging. So, what the standing rigging is three cables, wires that go up the mast, and they form a triangle which holds the mast up. So you have two on the sides, we call those the shrouds, or you could call them side stays, and then one at the front, and that is called the forestay. Now, because the catamaran doesn't have a central point in the middle, because we've got two hulls, the forestay comes down to these wires here. These are called the bridle wires. So the forestay comes down and then splits off to these bridle wires, one going to the bow of each hull. So the next most prominent part before we put the sails up are the rudders. On a catamaran we have two rudders, one for each hull, and the rudders are what steer the boat. They're linked by this bar down the middle. This is called the tiller connecting bar. So when we push one rudder, the other one does the same thing. From the tiller connecting bar, this will connect onto what is called the tiller. And then we're going into some detail here. The tiller goes on to the upper rudder casting. Then we have the lower rudder casting or rudder stock. These attach through the rudder blade. This is the rudder blade using some bolts. And then this attaches to the back of the hull, or this part of the hull is called the transom. So the back generally is the stern, but the actual back part of the hull is the transom. So the rudder stock attaches to the transom onto what's called the gudgeon using a rudder pin. There we go. And while we're here, most important part of the boat is the bung. There's a hole in the back of each hull. When the boat's on the beach, we leave those holes open so that the air can get in and out. But then, before we put the boat in the water, we have to screw in the bung. So next, the question, where are we going to sit on the boat? This large grey part, this is called the trampoline. It's very strong, it can carry a lot of weight, so there's no problems there. On the trampoline, we've got these straps. These are called the toe straps. You can use these for putting your feet under. This will make you feel more secure, and it will even allow you just to hang out of the side of the boat a little bit. On this type of boat, the trampoline is a 3-piece trampoline. So we've got one here, and then this strip along the front here. Between the pieces, what we use is this rope which zigzags between the eyelets. This is called the trampoline lacing. Then we've got the beams. The beams are what hold the boat together. The main beam, you could call it the main beam. We could also call it the front beam because it's the one at the front. This is the one on top of which the mast sits. Underneath the front beam, to make it stronger, we've got this part, which is called the dolphin striker. Now you can see how the middle of the dolphin striker is actually the same part as the mast step. That's what the mast steps on or sits on. Then on this type of boat, we've also got side beams. These boats with side beams are a good design because they put the trampoline a little bit higher, meaning you're less likely to get wet quite as early. And then at the back of the boat, going across here, quite obviously, we've got the back beam. Okay, and before we put the sails up, other parts of rigging that we can see is these bad boys. These are what are called the trapeze wires. These are so that we can hang out of the side and get more weight out and have a very exciting ride. Check out most of the videos on Joyrider TV to see the trapeze wires in action. All of the rigging on the mast, as we go towards the top, where that attaches, it all attaches to a single point about 2/3 of the way up the mast. That point is called the Hounds. Okay, so we're at the bow of the boat here. The part that the bridle wire attaches to, this is called the bow tang. The bow tang on the Hobies just bolts through the hull, and we need to make sure we keep that tight. Of course, we have one on each side. And then the way that the bridle wires attach to the forestay is we have a shackle, then this part, which is called a chain plate or a stay adjuster. That means that we can choose where we put it, and then the forestay just pins in to the top of that stay adjuster. We use more stay adjusters on the shrouds. This is so that we can decide the mast rake on the boat, how far forwards or backwards the mast sits. If you're just starting out, don't worry too much about the mast rake, but I have made videos on this topic, so do check them out on Joyrider TV. The pins that are used to connect the chain plate stay adjuster to any pieces of rigging, these are called clevis pins. And the clevis pin goes through the hole and then it's held in using a split ring on the other side. It's always a good idea to tape your rings just to be sure that those bad boys are not going to fall out. The trapeze wires are held in position when we're not using them by a piece of elastic that runs under the trampoline, goes through this hole and across to the other side, and that holds it in place, but it allows it to come out away from the boat. And then when we're steering the boat, the piece that we're actually going to hold, this is called the tiller extension. So we can see this rather long pole that extends from the tiller connecting bar, and that will allow us to steer the boat from any part of the trampoline, but also if we're standing out on the trapeze. This large yellow rope you can see, this is a very important rope because you may be using this from time to time. This is called the Capsize righting line. This is what we're going to use to pull the boat back upright if or when you capsize. And this is just tied onto the centre of the dolphin striker using a bowline. The way that we're going to move the boat around on land, This is using a launching trolley, which could also be called a beach dolly or cat tracks. Okay, so the lines that pull the sails up the mast, these are called halyards. So for the jib, we have this one on the front of the mast, which comes down to this horn cleat. The horn cleat is how we make the line secure so that it's held. So this one is called the jib halyard. And then for the mainsail, we have the main halyard. To attach the main halyard to the sail, we're going to use a shackle. So a shackle is one of these hoops with a screw-in pin. Okay, so the main halyard is attached, and then on many of the Hobies, the halyard is actually made from wire, and it has this little nugget on it which engages in a lock at the top of the mast, and that's what stops the sail from falling down. So as the sail is going up, you can see these blue stripes on the sail. These are what's called the Baton Pockets, because in the mainsail we have these plastic battens which are quite stiff, and what they do is they put shape into the sail. Okay, so once the mainsail is up, the halyard goes on to another horn cleat here on the side of the mast. And then on the trampoline, we've actually got built-in pockets where we can put the rest of the halyard. We've got one pocket on each side. So we put the halyards in one pocket and then the capsize righting line in the other pocket. Then to control the mainsail, we've got this, which is the main sheet. And this, on this boat, is just going to hook into the clew. That's what we call the back bottom corner of the sail. And the main sheet is what we'd call a 6-to-1 purchase. This is because it goes around the blocks 6 times with one place where you pull it from, and this makes it a lot easier to pull the sail in tight. The main sheet features a cleat. It's a different type of cleat. This is called a cam cleat, and this holds the rope so we don't have to hold it all the time, although it is a good idea to always have your hand on the main sheet. Underneath the main sheet, we've got the traveller. The traveller does as it's named, it travels along the back beam. So the traveller has a slider, the part where the main sheet attaches, another shackle there, and then the traveller has a cam cleat as well, which holds it in position. So when you lock the rope off there, it won't go out. When you undo the rope, if there's wind in the sail, it will just be allowed to go out towards the end. What we use for putting shape into the sail is the downhaul. On the simple boat, this is just a rope, goes through the bottom of the sail, and then we pull it tight. And again, we have a horn cleat for fastening the downhaul off. And when the downhaul's pulled on tight, that means we're ready to sail. You should only pull it on when you're ready to sail. This is an example of a more powerful downhaul system, generally found on slightly larger boats, but it means it's very easy because we've got this purchase system to pull the downhaul on harder. We can see the small sail at the front of the boat. This is called the jib. Most double-handed boats will have a jib. The jib just provides us with some extra sail area, and it gives the crew something to do because they'll be controlling the jib. Again, controlling the sail, we're going to have sheets. So the ones that control the jib are going to be called the jib sheets. And again, we have a cleat, a cam cleat, which holds the rope so you don't have to. Even on the jib, we have a small purchase system. Goes up to the sail. The sail on this boat is attached with a carabiner, this type of clip, through the pulley block. Any pulleys are generally called blocks on a sailing boat, and then back down, and that's our purchase. Now the jib sheet on a catamaran, generally continuous, which means it just goes straight across to the other side of the boat and does the same thing for when you're sailing in the other direction. Okay, and finally, a good feature on the beginner's catamaran is at the top of the mast, we have a masthead float. The masthead float is going to stop the boat from going upside down if you capsize. So this can be very handy and well worth having on your boat. So there we go. Now we know what the parts of the boat are and what they do. It's probably time to put the sails up. Oh, the sails are up, and put the boat in the water and go sailing. See you next time with some more on Joyrider TV. Thank you very much.